Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. All right, what you're about to listen to is part 2 of the episode that came out last week. Part 1 was about the 5 questions that you can ask yourself in order to make a conscious spending decision that you feel really good about. So make sure you go listen to part 1 first, because part 2, we're going to be diving into a lot more examples. I'm going to talk specifically about the Amex Platinum credit card. I'm going to give you another example, kind of going to go on some credit card annual fee tangents. So that's what you're about to get into in part 2. Go listen to part 1. If you've already listened to part 1, enjoy part 2. Okay, so let me go back to these 5 questions now. And I'm going to walk you through how I answered these questions with my Amex Platinum card. So for those of you who don't know, the Amex Platinum credit card is a credit card that has an annual fee of $695, which has now, the new fee for it is $895. So it went up by $200. They've added perks and stuff to it. But one of the key things for me to decide to make a new decision about this credit card was that it was going up by $200. Anytime something goes up in price, I'm always going to put it back on the table of like, and does this feel good for me, right? If I didn't already have this card, is this something I would want to pay for? Is this something that I would go out of my way to get, right? So that's why this question came up for me. I would say that you should always reevaluate every year. If you have a membership or a credit card or something, you should always be reevaluating. But for me, this is why this was like a big spotlight on this year. So first question, do I have money in my bank account? Alongside all the other things with the big picture in mind. So when I look at my bank accounts, I didn't have the $700 because with the renewal, it would renew me at $700, and then the next year that it renewed, it would go up to the $900. So I'm talking about that $695 annual fee. I didn't have the $695 in my annual fee bucket. Now, when I looked at all my other savings buckets, I saw that I had like excess money in my vacation bucket. And then I also had money in my acting career fund that I didn't have an intentional use for it. I just like to have money in there for if there's a class I want to take or there's something I want to invest in my creative career. That helps my artist be like, hey, you have money to spend on your creativity, right? I could compile the money from some of the money from those 2 buckets to create that $695 that I needed without having to touch my 3 months ahead on bills bucket, my emergency fund, or have to pull money from any other places. So yes, it's in the bank account, but it would be taking away from these other 2 buckets. Okay, good for me to know. Number 2, what am I hoping it will give me? Now, this could be a feeling, this could be a tangible result, this could be an identity shift. So this was interesting. What am I hoping it will give me? So I'm going to go tactical first. And I looked at all the perks that it would give me, right? What am I hoping it will give me, like, practically? So whenever it comes to a credit card, and I'm going to use a non-credit card example after this, but when you're assessing a credit card and the perks that it gives you, the marketing teams for these credit cards will always be like, you get like $6,000 worth of value for only $900. And it's like, whoa, why would you say no to that? That's amazing. But some of the perks that are on the Amex card, it's like a quarterly $75 credit to Lululemon. Okay, am I spending $75 at Lululemon quarterly right now? No. So it'd just be like a fun perk, but like that's not actually value, right? The value that I'm hoping it will give me, or that I desire for it to give me, is lounge access when I travel, being able to access any lounge at any airport. Well, not any lounge, but pretty much all the airports I go to, there's a lounge access there. So that's the first one. The second one would be they have like a hotel credit. That's kind of difficult to use because it doesn't work for all hotels. It only works for like really high tier hotels. But there's a hotel in Asbury Park that my partner and I went to this past year that's part of that hotel collection, and we really loved it, and we would go back there. So those are kind of the 2 main ones. And then there's like an Uber credit that's $15 a month, I think. I believe it's $15. that I enjoy using, that I usually do use, but it's not like pertinent. So, okay, so those are like the tactical things that I'm hoping to get out of it, that I want to get out of it. But then I also clocked that there was this energy of like, I hold this credit card and it feels nice to be someone who has an Amex Platinum. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like that that came up. But I'm clocking that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second, specifically with the Amex. I have a couple of other notes after I go through these questions. So I'm clocking that. There is like a tangible thing that the value of it is probably close to $700, but then there's this also identity thing that I like don't really love. So good for me to know. Number 3, can I achieve these things elsewhere for free or lower cost? Okay. So the tactical things, achieving those things free or lower cost. This is then where I'll do a little bit of math of like, okay, if I don't have the Uber credit of $15 a month, like how much would I actually care to spend on Uber Eats and Ubers throughout the year? It's like, I don't really care that much, right? So I'm going to kind of like put that out the window. Like I could actually do without that. But specifically lounge access and this hotel, like being able to feel like I'm going to a hotel for free with this hotel credit. Now, with lounge access, the thing I loved about the lounge access was like it's free food, it's free drinks, it's a nice atmosphere, specifically for someone who has airplane anxiety. That's really nice for me. That's a nice environment to like be in a calm space where I feel like a little bit elevated before getting on a flight. Now, like I said before, I've drastically cut down on drinking this year. So I'm not like drinking before flights. So all of a sudden, getting free alcohol in a lounge is like completely eliminated from being a perk for me. So then it's like, okay, so it's like the food in the lounge and the environment. Okay, well for me, what if I just let myself go buy a nice meal anytime I'm at an airport over mealtime, and I put myself like in one of those restaurants in the airport that like feels a little elevated where I can have space and a little bit of silence. Okay, so if I calculate that amount that I would spend over the course of how many flights I take in a year, okay, how much would that be? Like maybe $500 over the course of the year? Maybe on the high end. Okay. And then I think about this like hotel that my partner and I would want to go to, like for our anniversary. I looked up the price of what the hotel would be without the credit. We could go on like a different kind of weekend. So like the cost of what that hotel would be if I just let myself pay for it without needing a credit to make it feel like it's free. Same with the airport lounge thing. I could get it for lower cost or at least equal the amount of cost, right? Now, great, good for me to know. And what I want you to notice as I'm going through these questions aren't being like, okay, this question and how I answered it is a vote for yes, keep the card, or is a vote for no, cancel the card. It's just me collecting data, practical data, numbers data, and feelings data about this. So then I can take all of that data at the end of these 5 questions and be like, and now what kind of decision do I want to make? Okay? So, 4th question. What else would I use this money for and why? And will I actually then, with those other things I would want to do with the money, actually spend this money on them? Okay? And this is part of why this is a good question for oversavers, is because a lot of times it's like, okay, $700 on this credit card. You could create an infinite list of all the other things you could spend that money on. And a lot of times what oversavers will do, well, they'll list out all of the things they could spend that money on, and then they'll never actually spend that money on it, and they'll just keep it in their savings. Right? With the justification of like, well, I could spend this money on these other things. Okay? Without it actually being real. So what else would I use this money for? For me, $700 is going to get me 2 trips domestically to either see my family in PCB, see my sister and my dear friend out in LA. It could get me a trip down to, Florida to see my partner's family, to see my friends down there, or just for us to take an anniversary trip. Right now, that's a big value for me, is being able to go spend in-person time with the people that I love. A trip to North Carolina to see my best friend, which I got to do this Christmas. Like, those sorts of things feel so valuable to me. So for me, when I'm clocking 2 trips or vacations to see people in person that I love versus lounge access, this hotel credit, being an Amex Platinum holder, Okay, I'm like starting to see the scales tip towards this value. And I know that I'm actually going to spend that money on those trips. This isn't just like an amorphous, like I could spend that money elsewhere. No, I'm going to be able to fly somewhere 2 times this year to see people I love. Okay? And I will actually do that. 5th question. What am I afraid will happen if I pass on this? Or what am I afraid will happen if I do spend money on this? Okay, so I'm going to answer both questions. What am I afraid will happen if I pass on this? My fear is that, I'm going to really want that card again. I'm going to feel really sad that I passed on it because I really liked the perks and I'm going to want to get it again. But if I reapply for it, it's going to be $200 more, right? It's going to be at that $900 annual fee instead of the $700 annual fee. That's the only real fear because the fee was going up. If the fee wasn't going up, this would feel much more low stakes. Right? Because it's like, I'll just get it again. It won't matter. Okay? So that's my fear. So I think $200 is the practical fear. I'm going to have to spend $200 more than I would now if I decide to make a different decision. I'm equating this fear with an actual dollar amount. Okay? And also clocking that no matter what, next November, it's going to go up anyway. So I'm going to have to make this decision. If that's what's keeping me from this decision, that's going to come back up in the future anyway. Okay? What am I afraid will happen if I do spend money on this? Now, this is interesting because this is a much more amorphous answer for me. I don't have a real fear around this or a real reason. The fear is, what am I afraid will happen is I will spend $700 that isn't actually feel valuable over the course of the year. And I will now have parted with $700 that could have gotten me 2 trips home or 2 trips to LA. Or a trip to North Carolina and a trip to Florida for an anniversary trip. Okay? So that's interesting that I don't have a real fear around what would happen if I spent the money. But all of a sudden, when I asked myself that question, the value thing popped back up of I really value in-person time with my people right now. Okay? So interesting. So now when I look at the full picture of all of these 5 questions, what happened was I'm okay passing on it. Because worst case scenario, there feels like a deep hole in my heart that I don't have this card. Or that over the next couple of trips when I'm at the airport, I'm like, oh my God, I miss the lounge so much. My airplane anxiety is coming back. I really need a card that has lounge access because oh no, now I'm having panic attacks again on airplanes, which I haven't had a panic attack on an airplane in probably about a couple of years, which is a big deal for me because I'm a very anxious flyer. So if that started happening, worst case scenario, I'm I need that card back. So one of 2 things would happen. Either I pay an extra $200 on what I would have already paid, the $700, an extra $200 to get that card back, or I'm going to go research another credit card that still gives me lounge access that might be at a lower fee because I don't actually care about it being an Amex Platinum or all the other bonus whatever perks that don't actually mean anything to me. I don't need those. So when I equate the fear of what I would miss out on with a dollar amount and then what I would do if that fear came true, it feels much easier for me to pass on renewing this card. Okay? So do you see how these 5 questions let me surface some values, put some numbers to my actual fears to make my decision a lot clearer, where I don't feel like I'm going to regret anything and I feel really confident in this decision. Okay? Now I'm going to go through and give you another example of something like a practical item. Okay? So a couple of years ago when we were moving from Denver to New York City, we were staying with my parents for this crossover time between Denver and New York City. And during that time, I really wanted to buy this margarita sweatsuit. I'm going to pause this recording. I'm going to get it and I'm going to show it to you. Okay, here's the sweatsuit. Spoiler alert, I did buy it, right? Okay, so the top has a lime. It's a pink sweatsuit, a lime dripping into on the sweatpants. You've probably seen me wear these on Instagram or on these YouTube recordings, dripping into a margarita. And it's this hot pink. It's green. It's literally Not Starving Artist brand colors too. And a margarita. Y'all know I'm a margarita girl. So I'm going to walk you through how I made this decision with these 5 questions. Okay. So first thing, do I have the money in my bank account? At this time, we were moving from Denver to New York. My partner did not have a job offer on the table yet. Okay, we were moving to New York, a very expensive city. Now, I had money in the bank. I saw the $200 in my bank account that I could spend on this. And there was a lot of question marks and unknowns financially for my partner and I moving to New York, right? So most of my money was allocated for the move, the upkeep, the new upped lifestyle, right? Cost of living, right? A lot of my money was earmarked for that. This sweatsuit was $200, okay? So yes, I had the money in the bank account and I was consciously earmarking most of it for this transition and this move. Number 2, what am I hoping it will give me? A feeling, a tangible result, an identity shift. Now, for me, this was a feeling. I wanted a dopamine hit. I saw these things. I saw this suit and I was like, damn, that's a cute suit. That would make me so happy to wear it. When I wear it and look down at myself, it's going to feel like I'm cozy, but I'm put together. It's going to feel like me. But then there was also just this element of, this was one of the most anxious seasons of my life, right? Making this huge life change and also there being so many unknowns happening at that time. So stressed. And so the dopamine hit, like I just wanted to feel like I could have something and buy something and be excited for something that I knew was coming. So I clocked that. I was like, I don't love that a spending decision would be wrapped up in that specific feeling, but I'm clocking it. Okay. Number 3, can I achieve these things elsewhere for free or lower cost? Sure. Like there would be plenty of other matching sweatsuits that had a fun design that I would be excited about that I'm sure would be less than $200. Or I could make it myself, right? I could get just like a matching sweatsuit from Michael's and iron on patches and make it look similar or like have a same effect. But like, would I be able to get something exactly like this? Probably not. Okay, but sure. Number 4, what else would I use this money for and why? So what else would I use this money for? It would just be me not spending money because I had a lot of question marks and unknowns financially. So for this question, I was like, okay, will $200 make or break a lot of these big questions, which is, are we going to get approved for an apartment? Even though I have the money to show that we can afford it, landlords don't like self-employed income. They don't like fluctuating income, right? They don't like that. So is $200 going to make or break that? Probably not. Now, we had a moving fund, right? There's a lot of question marks of like, how much are we actually going to need to spend on furnishings and like all of those starter costs, right? With a new apartment. Okay, so $200 might be a part of that. But like, there wasn't anything concrete. It would just be earmarking this money for all of those question marks. Okay. Number 5, what am I afraid will happen if I pass on this? Or what am I afraid will happen if I do spend money on this? What am I afraid will happen if I pass on this? Now, this was something that was going to be like released to buy and then it was going to sell out and you didn't know if it was going to come back in stock. Like I had been following this brand for a while and I knew that's kind of how their sales worked. So if I didn't get it now, I probably wouldn't be able to get it. So I'm clocking that. There's like some urgency, some like, and again, we don't like making spending decisions from that place of like, what if I never get it again? What if I completely miss out on this? You're probably almost always not going to want to spend money from that energy. Okay, so I clocked that. But then what am I afraid will happen if I do spend money on this? I'm afraid that that $200 should have gone to something else, right? Like, again, this earmarked towards question mark moving costs. So I answered all these 5 questions, and face value, if I looked at these 5 questions at another time in my life, or like if someone else looked at them, it would point me towards, probably don't spend on it. You don't have a lot of concrete reasons for why you would want to spend on it, and you have a lot of question marks financially coming up. And yet, after answering all these 5 questions, really intentionally thinking about it, I said, you know what? I still fucking want it though. I still fucking want it. And guess what? Me spending $200 on this thing that I know is going to give me this like hit of joy at a time where I feel like I desperately need it. And you know what? I don't love that reasoning, but I love that that's the feeling that's going to come to me and I'm choosing to do that. Yes, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy it. And I did, and I still wear it all the time, and I'm obsessed with it. But even if I didn't wear it all the time, even if it started falling apart earlier than I still had backed my decision to buy this shit. And I said yes. So I'm using this as an example too, that like, you can make whatever decision you want after going through these questions. The goal is to go through the questions. Okay, so now I have a couple of other things that I want to touch on when it came to making this decision about this credit card. I want to talk a little bit about the Amex Platinum specifically because I've had some conversations with my clients about this specific credit card. And there's an identity thing here, which I mentioned earlier. I want to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to talk about like, should you be paying an annual fee for a credit card? My recommendations on how to navigate that. So we're gonna go a couple of different places here at the end of this episode. So the first thing that I want to say is there is something about the Amex Platinum credit card being a status symbol that I think is quite sticky. That if you have desired to have an Amex Platinum or you currently have it and you're keeping it, and there is a sneaky thing about like it being a status and identity thing, let's talk about it here for a second. What I want to say is that credit card companies, and specifically Amex, have done a brilliant job at making it feel like having a certain credit card means you're a certain type of person, mean you've reached a certain level, a certain tier. And so making a decision not to have it, it means something about your identity and who you are and what you've achieved, right? You look at their marketing, look at their commercials. They have done a brilliant job about this. So brilliant that I didn't even realize I had attached that flavor of it into me owning it until I went through these 5 questions, okay? Now, and I've had some conversations with clients about this too, because we've been reassessing annual fees with a couple of them because there's like multiple credit cards. We do credit card strategy in one-on-one coaching. I've also talked about it a few times inside of Cashed Up Creatives in the monthly office hours that I run with the people who are inside of it. Those are free, by the way, and I'm running them through June of 2026. So if you want to like get coached by me monthly and then like also have access to that video portal, I'm doing that through June 2026 with those free office hours. You get lifetime access to the video content, but asking me specific questions, that's through June. So get in on it. The link is in the show notes. So as we've been assessing credit card strategy and talking about the annual fees, it's like, well, why do you actually want this card? Or like, what's the value it's giving you? And there's something about, but I can't, once I've become a platinum holder, I can't not be a platinum holder, right? Or like, how could I go from like having lounge access and being at this tier of thing and then not having that anymore? And that's a really interesting dynamic that I want you to clock if you're having those kinds of thoughts, right? I also had a client who had a hard time getting approved for credit cards. And then we started working together. We improved their credit. And then they were able to get approved for a travel credit card. And then there was this element of like, then when they got approved for the Amex Platinum, it was like, I've made it. I got approved for it. Yay. This means something about me and being a responsible person to lend to, right? And like being able to have this now. But I want you to know, it's like, I've made it. So now I get to pay this company $700 to have this credit card. Like, do you see how these companies are so brilliant in making you feel this way? Okay. So I want to note that like this is a company deciding that that's how they want you to feel about having this card that has a really high fee. Okay. And that doesn't mean that you have to cancel it. That doesn't mean you have to cancel it. But I want you to clock how much of that is at play here. Because I'm telling you, there might be a world in which I do get one of these credit cards again in the future. But what this leads me to is as I was making this decision and I was clocking that, one of the things that I recommend to all of my clients, and when you're making a financial decision, again, not making it mean something about you long-term forever and ever and ever, amen. For me, what I did was like, okay, I'm going to do an experiment. I feel very attached to this credit card. And like in this day and age, do I want to feel attached to a company who has sold me a credit card that I feel like I can't live without? Don't love that. So let me do a 1-year experiment. I can live without this credit card for a year. I promise you I can. I have lived a much scrappier life than living without an Amex Platinum credit card. I can do this. So it was like, let me do a 1-year experiment. Let me just see how it feels to not have it for a year. And then after a year, I'm now going to have data on both sides, having it and not having it, right? That then I'm going to be able to make a decision, a fully formed decision about what I want to do moving forward. So it took the stakes out of it. It's like, okay, I can literally get it again in a year. Or, okay, 6 months down the road, I'm like dying. Or, right, my panic attacks have come back in an airplane. Well, and see, even as I'm talking through that, do you see how these questions are then like adding layers to how I'm questioning myself? I'm like, okay, so if your panic attacks came back, it wasn't the lounge specifically. What do you need to give yourself going to the airport and going through the process of going to the airport, that's going to help dispel that. Like, do you want to Uber to the airport instead of taking a bus because now you don't have lounge access, so you want that comfort there? Like, okay, so there's a lot of other things I could do there. So really, 1 year, I can deal without this card. Okay, so it's a 1-year experiment. And I've talked to some clients about this, doing this in different ways. So like a client wanting to redecorate a room in their house. Go a month without spending any money on it, redecorate it for a month, and then see what happens at the end of the month. What do you still want to buy? What do you still want to redecorate, right? If you give yourself these constraints for a month, you can live in a not perfectly curated room for a month, and then let's see what happens. I had a client who was paying for a high-end gym membership, and it's like, okay, there's a fear around stopping that, right? Because like, what if I want to go back? Or like, what if then my fitness slips, but like, I'm not really using it a lot right now? Like, what if? It's like, okay, go 3 months. Go a month. Right? Pull off of it for a month or 3 months and then decide how you feel at the end of that. Were you able to find other things, or do you really feel like you needed that? And this is just going to give you data, right? It's really helpful to run these experiments on things that you feel like you need or that you can't live without or that you are having decision paralysis around. Run it through an experiment and see what actually happens, right? So that was part of what I'm doing here with canceling this credit card, right? I feel dependent weirdly on this thing. Don't love that. Let me run an experiment and see how I feel for a whole year, okay? So the second thing, which is part of this, is like, I don't need it, is really sexy energy. Need and dependency are very very sticky energies. And so I was feeling a flavor of that. And I'm like, ooh, my God. Oh no, baby. No. We don't need it. We're good without it. Like, if I want it again, that's fine, but it's going to come from want. So let me run this experiment. And if I decide I want it again because I don't need it and I can show myself I don't need it for a year, then I'm going to feel way better getting it in the future because I know it's truly coming from want and desire. Also, let me rant about perks here for a second too. So there's a lot of perks that came with this card that then got upped and added when they were increasing the fee for this card. But the amount of perks and how the perks were designed, I had so many Google Calendar alerts set up to make sure I remembered to use the perk. So like every quarter going in and spending $75 at Lululemon. Every quarter making sure I was spending $100 at a Resi specific restaurant because that's what would get credited. Twice a year using $50 at Saks Fifth Avenue, making sure that I like opted into all of these honors programs to get the status, right? There was so much where I'm like, this is now no longer lazy girl travel hacking. This is me consuming and spending money that I wouldn't necessarily do in the first place and having to spend a lot of mental energy trying to track this stuff so that I get the value. It's not the point. That's not the point. That's not what I'm here for. That's not lazy girl. That's not simple. Too much. So it crossed a threshold this past few months where I'm like, and now this isn't simple enough. Now this is becoming like a bit of a faff. Okay. Now, the other thing about perks, why we love credit cards, why we love all-inclusive, why we love things that we pay for up front that then feel free on the back end, is because we have a hard time parting with dollars and like doing intentional spending like this. So it's really enticing for our brain to be like, okay, if I spend $700 now and I feel the friction of spending $700 one time, then I get so much free stuff throughout the year. I'm going to get like a free Lululemon package. I'm going to get free food and drink when I go to the airport, right? There's this element of like, it's going to feel free. And that feels better than just spending the money on those things moment to moment, day to day, month to month. That would actually probably cost less when you added it all up together on the stuff you would actually spend money on, that you actually care about spending money on, than spending the $700 up front. So it's this sneaky money mindset block of like, I just want to like pay for something to then feel like I'm getting it free forever and ever, right? Or like for the year. There's this energy of like free, even though it's not really free, that feels really good to us because it means we don't have to make a decision, right? And free feels like we're getting a really good deal because we've paid this and now we're getting all of this value. But if we think about what we actually want to spend money on, and I'm going to talk about consumerism in a second, The value isn't actually there. And like, I would challenge you, and this is something that I'm going to be exploring for me when I'm at airports moving forward. Spending money at airport restaurants and stuff at an airport costs more money than like just buying it outside of an airport, right? So it feels like I'm not getting a good value. But if I remember, like, I want to give myself a good experience to help with my airplane anxiety inside of an airport, $30 is worth it for me to like sit in a nice quiet spot in a restaurant and like get a good meal. Okay, so like that then gets to feel worth it. Why am I hesitant to spend $30 on myself in an airport to support my experience on an airplane? Now that's an interesting question. But me paying an annual fee allows me to bypass that question, right? And I want to be able to answer that question. And I want to be able to do that for myself, right? But there was something about the free element that is exciting when it comes to perks, right? So we want to always be assessing our relationship with perks. Is it so we can bypass feeling things with our money, or is it because it's actually a really good value, right? And sometimes it is a really good value, and sometimes it's a really good value, and we need to ask ourselves questions about how we relate to our perks, okay? So now let's talk about consumerism. So the other thing that was wrapped up in this question that I've been sitting with, I know a lot of you have been sitting with over the past year, couple of years since 2020, is our consumerist culture and capitalism. And then again, this is like a whole other rant for a whole other podcast. But as I was thinking about like, okay, a lot of these perks that I would be getting would be me then consuming things that I wouldn't necessarily want to consume if I wasn't getting them for free, hard air quotes, right? So I'm just consuming for consuming's sake to get the value of the big chunk of money that I paid earlier in the year. And like something about that doesn't feel good. And I can't quite articulate fully. So again, let me just run this experiment. No harm. And let me see how I relate to that. And let me see if I can formulate more words about why that specifically feels tied up in this. There's something here too about like credit card annual fee culture and points culture, status culture. I don't know. And like, it's not, now listen, I really enjoyed flying first class when I did. I really enjoy being in a lounge. There is luxury that is really enjoyable. There's nothing wrong with any of that. There's nothing wrong with any of that. What I'm walking you through is my specific brain space and what I'm sitting with in my own body and brain right now to help make this decision. And why I encourage you to walk through your answers to these 5 questions with your specific things that you're trying to decide to spend money on. Okay? Yeah, so there's something wrapped up in here. And again, I don't have words for it yet. And that's part of why I'm like, let me pull back and see how I'm actually feeling about all of this. Like I've been kind of entrenched in that world, not in the world of the credit card world, but I mean like I've been in the lounge and points world and like perks for so long. Let me just like decrease some of that. Let me pull back some of that. Now I'm still a lazy girl travel hacker. I applied for an American Airlines card recently that got me a bunch of American Airlines points, which is how I was able to fly to North Carolina for free. It's how I'm going to fly to Panama City to see my family for free later this year, right? Like we're still lazy girl travel hacking. But there was something different wrapped up in this Amex Platinum thing, okay? So stay tuned. I might have more thoughts about that later. Okay, so now practically, in case you're interested, when I was then when I made the decision to cancel it, I'm like, okay, well then how am I going to go through the process of canceling it to make sure I get the most out of it? So did you know that for most credit card annual fees, if you cancel it, normally they have a 30-day grace window. So, and every credit card is different. So you can always chat or call and ask for your specific credit card. Amex has a 30-day grace period. So once your annual fee hits, you have 30 days to get it refunded, right? There are also credit cards with annual fees that they'll prorate it. So if you cancel 4 months in, they'll prorate a refund to only charge you for the 4 months that you had it. So if you forget to cancel, I mean, this happened to my partner before where like he's forgotten to cancel a card that has an annual fee or downgrade it, and they've like prorated his amount for the 2 months that he had it, right? Amex has a 30-day grace period. So I knew my annual fee hit on something like the 24th of November. So I knew I would have 30 more days before that I could get it refunded for. And I knew that I had a trip to North Carolina that landed within that 30-day window and a new month hit, meaning I would get, and December specifically, they upped the Uber credit to like 35 or 25 or something. I can't remember. But I would get that bonus Uber credit, and I'd be able to use, you get one Chase Sapphire Lounge visit a year when you have the Amex Platinum. And I knew because I was flying American, I would be in the terminal in LaGuardia that had the Chase Sapphire Lounge, which I think is the best lounge. But you only get one of those a year. I was going to be able to use that pass if I waited until the 30 days later to get that, right? So I was being smart about how I was canceling too, to make sure I just like soaked in all the perks that I could get. Now this took a little bit more mental energy, and I posted on Instagram about this too, where it like messed up, it like made things a little messy and chaotic in my money flow. But because my money flow is so clean, because I'm so intentional with how my money flows through my bank accounts, it was easy for me to clean up, right? But I had to have like a little financial CEO party afters, a little after party to clean things up before January hit, okay? So I waited, so I was able to get those extra Uber credits and that extra lounge visit. And then I also, you get a Clear membership credit for like when you go through the airport, the Clear membership thing, you get a credit for that every year. Now, I was going to try and like cancel it and renew it so I would like get hit with that renewal fee, but that's like not really how canceling a Clear membership works. But when I went through the process of canceling it, it gave me an option to extend it for a few months for free. So now I'm going to have a Clear membership through February, even though my Amex was canceled in December. One of the other perks that you get with Amex Platinum is you get an airline fee credit every year. That's like $200. So my airline that's opted into this is American. Now, I wasn't going to be able to spend, $100 that I had left with my one last flight on American, right? That's like a domestic 2-hour flight. So what I did was I purchased a day pass at an American Airlines lounge online. That's good for a year. So I was able to use $80 of that last $100 credit to buy the pass so that I can have another lounge visit later in the year whenever I fly American and I want to use that lounge visit, right? So I was like redeeming all of my perks. Now, what I also want you to note about this is that this took effort and energy and time to think about, right? Now, I was doing this because I'm like, let me get the value that I've already paid for. And this is part of the reason why I want to cancel it in the first place, because there's so much to keep track of and think of. And I would rather use that energy for my art. I would rather use that energy to produce a show later this year. I'd rather use that energy to be even just like sitting in silence and letting my brain think about like the auditions that I have coming up and like character work. And there's so much more that I want to use my brain space for. Okay. So even going through the process of trying to get my money's worth while I was canceling this card even showed me more. This is why I want to do this year experiment of not having this card, right? Now, the last thing that I want to say specifically about credit cards and annual fees and like what should you do? What's the good thing to do around them? Should I keep it? Should I get one? All of that. The thing I will say, one, only pay one annual fee at a time. There's no reason you should be paying multiple annual fees for multiple credit cards, okay? So there's like $95 annual fee cards. There's $900 annual fee cards, right? Only pay one annual fee at a time. Most of the time it's worth it to pay an annual, not most of the time, some of the times it's worth it to pay an annual fee, specifically if you're getting a sign-on bonus for that year. If you haven't listened to my episode about lazy girl travel hacking at every level, go back and listen to that episode. You can put it into the YouTube search bar. You can also just like Google it, Not Starving Artist Podcast. It'll pull up the episode number. I can't remember when I recorded that one. But you can go listen to that so you understand the words I'm saying here with like sign-on bonus. But that just means you get a big chunk of points for getting the card as long as you hit a certain minimum spend. Now, that big chunk of points usually offsets the annual fee, so that's good. But then moving forward, you can downgrade or cancel it because it's probably not going to be worth it anymore. Now, sometimes it does make sense to have an annual fee card. I've had the Amex Platinum for like multiple years now. I've paid $700 a year for multiple years because it was worth it to me. Okay, but only one at a time. I'm not paying multiple annual fees. Now, second thing, calculate the value of the annual fee that you're paying based on what you already do day to day. So I'm not going to calculate this $75 quarterly credit to Lulu because I'm not going to buy, I'm not currently buying Lululemon, right? So I'm not going to calculate that into the value of what I'm getting because that's just like a bonus perk to entice you to get the card. The only value I'm going to calculate is the stuff I'm already using, which is like Uber credit, ? Sure. I probably don't use as much as they give me credit for on the card, though. If I didn't have the card, I probably wouldn't use as much as they give me. So ? Lounge visits and then that hotel credit. Okay. So that's what I'm going to calculate the value on. Calculate the value based on what you already do day to day. Third thing, if you are unsure, if you want to keep the credit card, downgrade it for a year and see how you feel. Do a 1-year experiment, right? And the main thing I'll say is that annual fees really are only worth it if you are traveling a lot, okay? Or if you want to get a specific sign-on bonus, even if you don't travel a lot, you're like, I want to fly for free this year to this specific place, pay the $95 annual fee, get the, $400 worth of flight credit, and then downgrade the card, right? Like then that makes sense. So those are the 4 things that I would say if you're trying to make a decision about a credit card. But also go listen to that Lazy Girl travel hacking video. We covered a lot of stuff in this episode. I have already decided I'm going to split this into 2 parts. We're going to do a 2-parter here because this is a lot to take in. I hope this was helpful for you to help you make spending decisions moving forward. And also I hope this was helpful as you were thinking about credit cards and your credit card strategy, if that's something that's been on your mind. Happy 2026. We are back. We are here together. During the inauguration ceremony for Zohran Mamdani here as mayor in New York City, one of the speeches was by Jumaane Williams, who's our public advocate. And one of the things he said during his speech, he had all of us stand up and repeat after him a bunch of things. If you haven't watched it, like go watch. I mean, all of the speeches, they were incredible, heartwarming, full of hope. But he had us all grab each other's hands and he said, and look to each other and say, I will not let go of your hand. We will not let go of each other's. Oh, I'm getting emotional. God, it was so good. But like, that's the energy here, right? I've got your hand. You've got mine. We've got each other's hands. We're going to make it through it. And I'm going to be here every week, making sure you have the money in the bank to keep surviving this shit. And make sure you have the money in the bank to relieve your anxiety. So that way you can continue just to show up in this world and do your art and make the impact that you are meant to have in this world, in this lifetime. I love you and I'm here for you. Stay intentional. Stay awake. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.